Okay, we're going to get started today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Ellen Miller, and I am the Pro Bono Manager at the National Immigrant Justice Center. We have a very special presentation today entitled We the People, Community Stories of Resilience and Justice. For those of you that have joined us before, you know that this Justice in Java series was created to engage with you more frequently and in depth on issues, timely, important immigration issues involving law and policy. Well, today we are going to be talking more about the humanitarian side of these laws and policy, of immigration law and policy. Because I'm sure, like many of you, what really drives me to do this work is not just these laws and the policies, but it's the people that we meet and those with whom we work, and the hope that all can enjoy basic human rights. So as we wrap up what has been an incredibly tumultuous year, we recognize that it is our community connections that pull us through this challenging times, that celebrates our victories and shares these hopes. Today, December 10th, we celebrate International Human Rights Day. Well, not just us, it's an international day, so we are celebrating International Human Rights Day. This is a day to commemorate key values shared by all humans, such as fairness, dignity, equality, and respect. As you will hear from today's speakers, we are a resilient group of people who fervently live and believe in the power of nonviolence and also take action for fairness and equality. Being in this community has enabled us to endure the ups and the downs, and in addition has provided us a space to nourish our commitment to human rights. Welcome to the celebration. Before we get into the actual presentation, I do want to just go through the general housekeeping rules of a webinar. This presentation is being recorded, and a link to the recording with follow-up materials or additional materials will be included in a follow-up email. Everybody is on mute right now, and any questions or comments can go to the chat function, and we'll respond to that as quickly as possible. So our mission at NIJC, following along with Human Rights Day, is to ensure human rights protections and access to justice for all immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. With offices in Chicago, Indiana, San Diego, and Washington, D.C., NIJC provides direct legal services to and advocates for these populations through policy reform, impact litigation, and public education. We have made critical advances in the lives of hundreds of thousands of vulnerable immigrants, refugees, asylum seekers, and their families. And NIJC, with our pro bono network and our great community, have provided legal services to more than 10,000 individuals this calendar year. And we have been on the vanguard of federal impact litigation and advocacy, setting positive precedent for those seeking human rights protections within our borders. Today, we are going to hear stories from 3 of NIJC's clients, 2 of our great partners, and one of my wonderful colleagues. We will also see highlights of accomplishments from this year's collective efforts, and then, of course, leave with ways to get or to stay involved with the NIJC community. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Roger Lewis. Roger is a partner at Goldberg Cohen and has been a pro bono attorney with NIJC since 2014. In addition to his impressive record as principal of Goldberg's litigation group, Roger has also represented individuals in asylum, DACA, and special immigrant juvenile status. He is here today, we've asked him here today, because of his recent support of a young asylum seeker and her efforts to establish life in the U.S. Roger, can you get your webcam on? Great. And so, turn it over to Roger. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ellen. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Roger Lewis. I'm a principal with Goldberg Cohn in Chicago, where I practice, as Ellen said, commercial litigation. And I'm so pleased to share my experience as pro bono asylum counsel and to do so in this forum in support of NIJC's really life-saving work. My client, Maria, was born and raised in El Salvador. She crossed the border alone, unaccompanied, when she was only 16 years old. A brave, scared child running from certain death in her native country. Maria was essentially orphaned at age 9 when her elderly father died. She was estranged from her mother, who was disabled and couldn't care for her. For several years, she lived with family members who cared nothing for her, each home proving abusive and dangerous. By age 15, Maria had moved in with her older brother, himself just a teenager, the one family member who loved her and wanted to protect her. Unfortunately, soon after she moved in, Maria's brother was being heavily recruited by the local gang, MS-13, and Maria herself drew the interest of the local gang leader, who claimed her as his. Maria and her brother fiercely resisted the gang. They were both badly beaten and abused. One day, Maria's brother was shot and killed by the gang, and Maria fled for her life, first to locations within El Salvador, then across the border in Guatemala. The gang leader tracked her down each time. Maria's only hope was to escape further north to seek asylum in the United States from persecution. She was 16 and alone. Maria had one US phone number, that of another half-brother who lived in Chicago. They had never met. She was able to get across the border and call him. With agency help, Maria was released to her sister-in-law as guardian and came to Chicago. NIJC took her case, put Maria on the list of asylum seekers needing pro bono counsel, and my firm, Goldberg Cohn, and I committed to taking her on as a client. We were joined in that representation by Angie Steele, an attorney with the McDonald's Corporation, who, like us, was committed to taking on an asylum matter during those early Trump years when asylum seekers were in great need of assistance, as they are today. For me, representing Maria has been career-altering, really life-altering. The legal work has been interesting. I've learned a lot about asylum law, and with NIJC's help, have prepared Maria for an asylum interview, which has not yet happened. We've actually been waiting for over 2 years for that interview after filing for her petition. But I'd say that the legal work is secondary to the real-world relationship that Maria and I have built, along with my colleague Margie Alvarez from my firm, who has acted as translator and emotional rock for both Maria and for me. Margie and I and Angela McDonald's have shared in Maria's challenges and triumphs. We saw her cross the stage to receive her high school diploma just 2 years after crossing the border. We helped her to apply for employment authorization and have been proud to see her working to become self-sufficient and planning for the future. We celebrated her engagement to her high school sweetheart and celebrated even more when they welcomed a baby girl just a few months ago. There have been low points too. Margie and I have been on call to address any number of emergencies encountered by a young woman coming of age with little to no money, language barriers, and horrific emotional scars. We've become familiar together with various social services agencies and what they have to offer. Happily, we have been assisted at every step by NIJC, especially Rachel Milos, whose timely, wise counsel has helped immensely. NIJC is a true partner in these cases, invested in the big picture fight on behalf of all, but also committed to the detailed work and care required in each case. Through it all, Maria has pushed ahead, showing all of us who know her the same bravery and perseverance that led a tiny young girl from El Salvador to escape death and arrive in Chicago. Representing Maria has been one of the great honors of my career, and I'm even more honored to call her a friend. For anyone interested in an experience like mine, please contact NIJC. Take a look at the list of clients that need assistance and consider stepping in. I promise you will not regret it. Thanks, Ellen.
Roger, that was awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, sharing a bit of Maria's story, and also all of the pieces that have come together to make that case happen. As you know, you're one of many cases, and so thank you to you and Goldberg for what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we're going to move on, and I would like to introduce to you Carla. Carla is a high school teacher in Illinois, and her family have been clients of NIJC for a number of years. She is here to tell us about how she continues to build her life and be a pillar of support in her community. So let's hear a little bit from Carla.
Good evening. My name is Carla Robles, and I am currently a high school Spanish teacher as well as a tennis coach at Palatine High School. And my story began back in 2004 when my family and I moved from Mexico to the United States. And the reason that I am able to be a teacher today is because of the contact and the guidance that my family and I have had with the help of NIJC. We moved here because in Mexico, there were just no more opportunities for us to advance and just have carry out a life. And I have two older brothers. So we moved here, and my mom, two older brothers, and I flew in with visitors visas and overstayed the allotted time through the visa. And we were then considered undocumented immigrants. So at that point, moving forward, as I was growing up, that was definitely a big secret of mine and my family as well. I did have some peers that asked me if I was undocumented after they found out that I was born in Mexico, or they would ask, oh, are you legal? And I would just skirt away from the question, try to just focus again on the fact that I was trying to keep my head down, keep my status a secret, and just do well in school. Unfortunately, the fear of deportation did almost come to fruition as my two older brothers were in college, and they went to visit a friend who was studying at Harvard at the time. They took a train, and immigration officials got on the train and asked for documentation. At that point, this was pre-DACA, any sort of legislation that could offer them any protection, and they were detained, and they were sent to a county jail as the deportation center in the Buffalo area was at capacity. So at that point, that was where our mindset really shifted. And that point is when we came into contact with NIJC, and they were the ones who were able to represent my brothers and fight for them and for our whole family, so our family would not be separated. And they were able to fight for them, thankfully, to be able to stay in the United States and received advanced parole. If it would not have been for the help of NIJC and the work also of Senator Durbin and his staff, my brothers would not, and I would not be where we are today. We're able to keep our family together. And so that kind of shifts back to my own activism and my own story as to how I am a teacher today. I saw a lot of impact that people had in our lives and being able to guide us through the educational system. And from that moment in high school, my mindset shifted, and I realized that being quiet, hiding from the world, and not sharing our story of who we really were as undocumented people was not going to help the cause, and it was not going to bring about change. Personally, I started kind of just sharing within the classroom, and eventually we did start taking it to the media and speaking out at schools and different places where our voices could be heard, and we could start advocating for undocumented immigrants, not just undocumented youth. I definitely am very straightforward about that side of my identity in my classroom, and I also want to kind of be a mirror for those students who are also undocumented or are part of mixed status families. I'm there to support them and guide them in any way possible, as well as their families.
Okay, so that's from Carla. What a great example of how we've been able to reach out to different family members, to individuals, but then also how she keeps it going. And she's a great pillar and a teacher in this pandemic. We're so grateful to Carla. When we talk about access to justice, many people think of lawyers, judges, and courtrooms. Our next speaker exemplifies how access to justice requires coordination of many moving pieces and sometimes literal stops in the middle of the road. Colin McCormick and his colleagues at the Interfaith Community for Detained Immigrants, ICDI, are trekking through the cornfields of the Midwest and showing up at detention facilities. They are oftentimes the first friendly face an immigrant sees once released from detention. Colin, we're so grateful to have you here. Would you like to share a few words with us today?
Hi, yes, thank you. It's an honor to share this presentation with such amazing panelists. Again, my name is Colin McCormick, and I am the Post-Detention Program Director with ICDI. I've been working with asylum seekers in Chicago for the last 2 years, and I started with Chicago Immigrant Transit Assistance, or otherwise known as CITA, but co-led the transition to becoming an official program of ICDI. The Interfaith Community for Detained Immigrants is a 501c3 nonprofit based in Chicago, but serves immigrants in detention centers in Illinois and Wisconsin. ICDI primarily serves detained immigrants and immigrants who have recently left ICE detention. The programs we have are the Unaccompanied Children's Interfaith Ministry, Court Watch, multiple Houses of Hospitality, jail visitation, and the post-detention programs, which are the ICDI Hotline and Chicago Immigrant Transit Assistance. During the pandemic, ICDI staff and a handful of volunteers are providing all of our in-person services. Traditionally, we have teams of over 350 incredible volunteers, but now just a few of us are able to provide these in-person services. The pandemic's most significant impact to us is that ICE refuses to transport individuals being released. Pre-pandemic, immigrants would be brought from the detention facilities to the ICE field office in the Federal Building in downtown Chicago. Now, as an interfaith group of concerned individuals, the weight has fallen onto us at ICDI. Our goal remains the same: to support individuals leaving detention, to get them home safely and reunite them with their loved ones. While the number of releases has significantly decreased from before the pandemic, we still have a high volume of requests for help. Before the pandemic, the post-detention volunteers would assist upwards of 40 individuals a month, but we are now serving 10 people a month. The difference now is that we're providing up to 6-hour round-trip drives from Chicago to support just one individual. The story that I want to share with you all today is about a client of mine and of Michelle Velasquez, the NIJC Pro Bono Project Coordinator for NIJC's LGBT Immigrants' Right Initiative. About a year ago, Michelle and I met outside of the Greyhound station with her client who had just left detention. ICDI was able to provide her with all of the usual travel essentials like a phone, weather-appropriate clothing, a hot meal, and a backpack filled with personal hygienic products. Our client was barely an adult, just 18 years old and extremely petite. I almost missed her and Michelle when I was looking for them outside the station. Once we were settled inside the bus station, she told me more about her story, and she was finally able to talk to her mom back in Central America. It was the first time she could speak with her in many, many months. Many tears were exchanged between us all, and she was so grateful I was there for extra emotional support. When it was time to board the bus, we had such a long hug saying goodbye and cried just a little bit more, but it was such a relief when I got the call that she made it safely to her aunt's home on the East Coast. This story sticks with me so vividly because it's so hard to let such vulnerable individuals go into the world away from the safety that we can provide them, but it is truly miraculous when families are reunited. This is the type of story that keeps all of us motivated to keep moving forward no matter how difficult the circumstances, because we know every human being deserves to be welcomed and celebrated. ICDI is always seeking support to continue our critical services to immigrants who have recently left ICE detention. You can find us online to donate or simply to stay in touch at icdichicago.org or by following us on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Thank you.
Colin, thank you. I also just learned that yesterday you and ICDI coordinated the release of a mom of 6 children to be transferred from Kentucky to the Chicago suburbs after like 3 months of being needlessly detained. So, you know, this is an never ending and just amazing job that you're doing. And we thank you and ICDI for your friendly faces and all the great work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I would like to introduce to you Tanya. She understands the value of collaboration such as ICDI and NIJC. Tanya Cordova is a former NIJC client who won her case and freedom from ICE detention with NIJC's LGBT team led by Anisha Gandhi. In efforts to support other LGBT immigrants, Ms. Cordova is also the founder and director of Ser el Cambio, to be the change. And she provides advocacy and support services to the Transformative Justice Law Project in Illinois and Casa Ruby in Washington, D.C. We're now going to hear just a little bit of what Tanya has to say about her experiences.
Well, I was 15 when I came to the U.S., and especially I was fleeing from discrimination, bullying, sexual harassment, and persecution. Detention is prison. Detention is separation of families. Detention means loneliness. Detention means that a lot of the times trans women or trans individuals had been placed in solitary confinement. That's torture. That's violence. I remember that from my hometown, another gay person got deported, and some of the guys from the town beat him up to death. And I was like, that could be me. That could be anybody. And not just in my hometown. And even here in the United States, you can see the violence. And there's so many people who are not living their true self because they are so scared of society. And just by living a lie, you're not living. I was able to reach to Michael Cherokee, a lawyer from Illinois, and he was gonna represent me. But after I got arrested from ICE, he reached out to NIJC, and NIJC was able to provide with legal representation. I would tell any individual, any immigrant that is connected to NIJC that you are in the best hands. My biggest gratitude to NIJC, when I was in detention, it wasn't just legal representation. It was about giving me all the support that I needed at the time. And yes, a short story, something that I remember, one day I was talking to Anisha, and she was like, do you need anything? Do you need me to send you books? What is it you need? Are you having all the support from your family and friends? So that means that even if I didn't have my friends and my family support, I knew that I have NIJC, and NIJC have proved that they are my family. What freedom means to me. As a kid, I always dreamed of flying like a little bird or like a butterfly. That I was able to express who I really was and who I am now today. I never thought, and I never really dreamed that I was going to be able to be this beautiful butterfly that I am today. that I was going to be able to express myself without persecution, without violence. From human rights, from the future, I want to see that every LGBTQ people, every trans woman, every human being have all the rights, all the human rights. That all human rights should never be denied to nobody. And that's what I hope for the future.
Okay, so that was Tanya, and Tanya is doing great things, and we are so grateful to her and all that she's doing in her community as well. Now we're going to moving on quickly to our next presenter is my colleague Maripaz. Maripaz Ventura Arrieta is NIJC's coordinator for our Legal Protection Fund, the LPF, and she will share a bit about the work and the exponential impact that this initiative is having in the Chicagoland area. So thanks for joining us, Maripaz, and take it away.
Thank you, Ellen. So the Legal Protection Fund is one of the grants that we receive here at NIJC. And it was created in 2017 kind of as a way for the community to be able to come together and react to all the anti-immigrant rhetoric and all the threats that kind of arose from the Trump administration in 2017. And so it's kind of a great example of how the community works together and that we're able to provide free legal screenings and legal representation to residents of Chicago. But we're also able to do a lot of outreach and public education. So the Resurrection Project, who also receives this grant, along with 10 other organizations around the city of Chicago, work with what we call community navigators, and they're people who, have been through the process, are migrants themselves most of the time, and are now able to kind of go out into the community and provide, immigration policy updates, know your rights presentations, and are able to also then refer people who are in need of legal screenings to NIJC. And at NIJC, we're able to provide those legal screenings, legal representation where it's appropriate. And we can also help with, providing guidance as to all of those immigration updates that, as we know, happen all of the time. Next slide, please. And so a few of the things that we're able to do, as we work together, in the past 4 years, we've been able to provide over 6,300 legal screenings, and we've been able to provide representation to over 3,000 people under the fund. And we've also, as all the local organizations go around and do Know Your Rights presentation, we've been able to reach over 36,000 people. And you can see the maps there. We've been able to thankfully reach people from every ward in the city of Chicago, which is really impactful. And I think it's also really important to keep in mind that, all these numbers and all these individuals, it doesn't just impact them as individuals, but it impacts their families well-being, the communities, and then, Chicago at large. So the impact that we're able to have when we work together as a community is just so important. Next slide. And, the fund was set up to be able to, react to all of these, anti-immigrant threats and just policy updates that happen. And so these are just a few examples of the way that we've been able to work together to do this. In the summer of 2019, there was a lot of threats of ICE raids going around, and we were able to mobilize as a fund and provide Know Your Rights presentations all over to Chicago to help, mitigate the effects of these raids and just to prepare people so they have plans if they ever had to be in a situation where they were with ICE. And DACA, as we've known since the summer, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but we've been able to work together to kind of react to that as well. So community navigators are out there talking to people within their communities, providing them all the updates that have been happening, letting them know how they can prepare for when, DACA was to open. And actually, since this slide was created, there has been an update, and USCIS was told that they had to start accepting initial DACA applications. So, we're now at a stage where we're getting a lot of initial DACA referrals from our community partners because we were ready to mobilize, and we were really ready for that. And there was also a fee increase that was due to take effect October 2nd of this year. It actually didn't go into effect, but While we thought it was going to go into effect between August and October, NIJC filed over 700 cases, and these were cases that were going to, experience really high increases and that were really going to affect people in the community. And that wasn't just the Legal Protection Fund; it was the Immigrant Legal Defense Team at NIJC that worked so incredibly hard. But I think these are just such great examples, as this presentation says. Community is so important, and the immigrant community is just so resilient. And with that being said, I would actually like to introduce the next speaker, and his name is Samur. Samur Hassan grew up in Chicago with Palestinian and Venezuelan roots. As a former undocumented immigrant, he noticed inequalities among the segregated neighborhoods in Chicago. Samur began a mentorship pipeline from Chicago's underrepresented communities to the community colleges and advocated for tuition reform and inclusion of student voices in the decision-making processes. In 2018, Samur earned the Program for Academic Leadership and Service Award Scholarship, and he just recently graduated from Columbia University in New York. So we'll hear from Samur next. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Samur Hassan, and I grew up in America undocumented most of my life. When I was 18 and after graduating high school, my parents told me that I received my green card. All I had to do was go back to Barquisimeto, Venezuela, where I was born, and just pick it up. Little did I know that my parents had found out that I was gay. They didn't want a gay son. But they tricked me and told me that my green card was waiting for me in Venezuela. All I had to do was just go back and pick it up. Their plan worked. I came back with them after graduating high school to pick up my green card, but it was all a lie. They had tortured me and eventually abandoned me there. And after 5 months of living with complete strangers who became like a family to me, I was granted a humanitarian parole visa by the American government, which gave me a year to apply for any type of visa that would allow me to stay in America for longer and eventually, hopefully, a permanent residency status. And it was through the National Immigrant Justice Center in Chicago where they helped me apply for a such visa. And I was granted the VAWA visa, which actually gave me the ability to apply for FAFSA. And through FAFSA, I was able to go to college. I ran for student government president at Harold Washington College in Chicago, and I won on the platform of justice for immigrants like me. After a couple years, I graduated from Harold Washington College, and I was granted a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League university, where I actually just graduated in May with a bachelor's degree in political science. Even before I graduated, I was offered a managerial position at a policy and advocacy organization in Washington, D.C. And I would never have been able to do anything like this if it wasn't for an organization like the National Immigrant Justice Center, where they helped me for years, pro bono, mind you, to finally achieve a green card and finally achieve the semblance of the American dream. And it's organizations like these that are integral and paramount to giving immigrants like me a fighting chance at achieving the American dream. And there's so much more that we're gonna do for this country if the country gives us a chance. Thank you.
It takes a village to do all of this. And as you saw, as Mary Poss mentioned, the village of Chicago, if I will, the great city of Chicago has been doing great work. And thank you, Mary Poss, for being, in the trenches there and being a bridge with a lot of our community organizations and being ready to respond to the needs of our communities and to keep the information flowing, right? And people like Samur, Samur reached out to us proactively to tell us where he was and what he's doing and how he continues to give back. And so we're grateful for all the things that Samur is also doing and will continue to do to ensure human rights. Moving on, I will just say that I'm continuously inspired and ever grateful to the speakers today and all that they're doing. They are great examples of the thousands of people that are working to ensure access to justice and human rights and to uphold NIJC's mission. As you see here, we have accomplished a lot this year. We have filed hundreds and thousands of applications. We have defended from deportation, reunited families separated by immigration detention, challenged unjust policies, and helped communities stay informed. Through all of this, though, and perhaps most importantly, we have shown up for mothers and children in some of their darkest moments. We have accompanied survivors from instability to security, and we provide a listening ear and a sense of hope. Our combined efforts do matter, and people are bringing about transformation when working together. We are a community that celebrates human rights. We are resilient. And yes, we will continue to fight for justice. And so here's a few ways for you to stay involved. If you want to hear more stories like you heard today, we invite you to check out our website. There's a link right there, and we'll send it along in a follow-up email. We invite you to support NIJC. Yes, we are. It's that time of year. We are in our annual appeal, and your financial support helps us continue to do this work. So like you saw today, all actions, large and small, help. And your donation, large or small, will help. There's the link to donate, and again, we'll put it in the email. If you are an attorney and have legal skills, then we, like Roger said, please consider taking a case. We know that everybody's busy. It's been an exhausting year, and we will keep fighting. We need your help. We have 62 people, 62 matters on the list for individuals and families that are looking for their fair day in court. We ask you to continue to be active and participatory members of society and our democracy by communicating with your members of Congress. There's numerous ways that you can do that. And most of all, please keep up the good work and be kind. And that's a wrap. That's the end of this year, this presentation, and we just want to say thank you for all that you do. If you'd like to engage with us further, with your comments and your feedback about this presentation, you can hold your device up to that QR code and put in any comments in a brief survey. It's 4 or 5 questions. And if not, that's fine too. We hope to see you in January, mid-January. We'll pick back up again with our Policy Corner presentations. In the meantime, be well and happy holidays. Thank you.